Today's project is for intermediate crocheters who are comfortable working with half double crochet, carrying yarn, and working with color switches. This pattern comes in 2 adult sizes, so you'll need to take your head circumference measurement and determine whether you need to use the small pattern or the large pattern. Today's tutorial will cover how to crochet this hat in the round and also as a flat project. The written instructions are written as a flat project, and you can find the free pattern on my website. To make this hat, I used a medium worsted yarn and a 4.25mm hook. You can find information about the hook and yarn combinations down in the description box below or on the blog. Now for this pattern, we're going to be using a chainless foundation. So as you can see here, I've chained 2. You're going to insert your hook into the first stitch. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through the first stitch, and then yarn over and pull through both of these remaining loops on your hook. And then we're going to repeat. So insert your hook into the second stitch from your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Once you have 2 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over and pull through the first loop. You'll be left with 2 loops again. You're going to yarn over and pull through both of those loops. So now we have 2 stitches. So for the remaining part of this hat, if you are crocheting the small hat, you're going to make a chainless foundation of 75 stitches. If you are crocheting the large hat, you're going to need to crochet 83 stitches. So right here, we have already got 3. So we crocheted the first 2 together. I did the third one while I was explaining everything. This is stitch number 4. So that should give you an idea of what your chain should look like. But again, it's 75 for the small, 83 for the large. All right, so because the hat I'm making is green, I was showing you the stitch in a lighter color so you can see it. You can't really see it too much when I do the chain in green, but here's the chain. As you can see, it is really stretchy when you make your initial chain this way, which is exactly what we want since we're working this hat from the brim up. The brim we're going to work separately, and I'll show you that at the end, but we need this part of the hat, since it's the bottom part, to be very stretchy. We're going to cover 2 different ways to make this hat. The first one, I'm going to start you off with crocheting it in the round. For those of you that don't like to crochet this in the round, which I personally don't, but I'll show you how to start it in the round, and then we're going to do this project again in the flat. You can find the timestamps for the video down in the description box below, so if you want to skip this part, you can. Alright, so for those of you crocheting in the round, you're going to insert your hook into the very first stitch of the chain, yarn over, and pull through this stitch, as well as the first loop you had on your hook. So you're slip stitching, and then you're going to chain 2. And then from here, we're going to begin our half double crochet. So this entire project is crocheted using a half double crochet. Well, okay, that's not true. The hat part is. The brim is Tunisian crochet, but there will be more to follow. Alright, so you yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, and then yarn over and pull through 3. That's our half double crochet. We're going to do it again together. So yarn over, insert the hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through 3. If this tutorial is moving a little too fast for you, you can slow the playback down a little bit by hitting the settings on the YouTube video. It's on the top right corner of the video. You can slow down the playback mode, and it might be easier to follow along that way. If you need help with that, just leave a comment down below and I can walk you through how to do that in the comment section. So to make this a seamless transition for everybody crocheting in the round, we're just going to half double crochet into the second stitch of the chain 2 that we crocheted at the beginning of the round. So just half double crochet into here, and in order to not have to start the round every time with the chain 2, I'm just going to place a stitch marker right here. This is the very first stitch of the round. And now I know once I get to here, I've crocheted yet another round. So crochet an additional 3 rounds. So you'll have the total of the 4 rounds plus your chainless foundation. And that sets up the base before we start working on the chart itself, which is the poison apple image. And once you have your fabric, it's going to look like this. So this is the 4 rows of half double crochet plus our foundationless chain, or chainless foundation. The chain. Let's just call it the chain. Once you've crocheted all of these rows, you're going to need your chart. So here's a look at the chart. You can find this on my website. Links are all down below. It's got 2 sets of numbers on it. So the top numbers are for right-handed crocheters. You're going to crochet from right to left. The bottom set of numbers are for left-handed crocheters. And this is going to be read from left to right. So we are not going to cover every single row of this chart. We're going to cover the first row, and I'll teach you how to do the color switches and how to navigate the 3 different colors. From then on out, you'll be able to crochet this on your own. Alright, so when you do your color switch, you're going to begin a half double crochet, the stitch before your new color. So once you've got your 3 loops, you're going to yarn over in the new color and then pull it through all 3 loops. Then when you crochet the stitch after, you're going to have to carry it like you see here over the stitch, and then you can begin to crochet in your new color. So for the stitch counts, again, you can find the free written pattern is on my website, so don't freak out if you can't remember all of this. If you are crocheting the small hat, you're going to crochet 29 stitches in green or black or whatever your base color is. And then you look at your chart. You have an additional 5 stitches in your base color on the chart. So it's 29 plus 5, and then you switch to red. Your color switch needs to happen on the 4th stitch on the chart. So you crochet the first 4 as half double crochets. Your color switch is on stitch number 5 so that you can begin the red on the stitch right after. Now, if you're crocheting the large hat, you're going to have 33 stitches and then your chart. So it's 33 plus 5. Remember, your color switch is on stitch number 5, and then you start the red. If you take a look at the image of the chart right here on the screen, whether you crochet right or left-handed, it's always going to be those additional 5 stitches right before you begin the apple image. And this is, again, just to make it a lot easier to begin this first row together. And then from there on out, the project is going to differ based on whether you're crocheting right or left-handed. All right, something to keep in mind is that you're going to have to carry this yarn, so the red one, throughout the entire round. So from here on out, you have to carry it. Be sure to adjust your tension. Don't pull it too tight because it is going to affect the elasticity of your hat. And don't make it too loose either, because you'll be able to see the stitching, or I guess the red yarn through the stitching. So it's going to take a minute to play with it, but once you find the right tension for the yarn that you're carrying, it's going to become just, second nature, and you'll be able to do that, especially when you start carrying 2 colors, because you're going to have to carry the red for the apple and, the black or whatever other color you use for the poison as well. So you'll be carrying 2 threads of yarn almost throughout the entire apple image until you get to the tiny little stem at the top. All right, so when you do your color switches, make sure that it's always the stitch before you have to start your new color. So in this case, because I'm crocheting right-handed, and if again you look at your chart, I have to add 2 stitches, so 2 additional red stitches, right before my previous row. So the first red stitch of my previous row. So just take a look at the chart here on the screen to see what I mean. If you're crocheting left-handed, it's only going to be 1. Just remember to do your color switch right before your new color is, due to begin on the chart. Now, when you add a 3rd color, like I said before, you're going to have to carry 2 threads of yarn for the rest of the project. So here I'm adding the black color, which is what I intend to use for the poison part of the apple. So I'm going to do my color switch. All I need is the 1 stitch. So I'll half double crochet this 1 stitch, but because it's only the 1 stitch, we have to make this a color switch half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, insert the hook into the stitch, pull up a loop. Once we have the 3 loops of our black yarn, we're going to have to yarn over and pull through in the red, because I still have 2 stitches left. Again, I am crocheting this right-handed. You would have had to do this earlier in the row if you're crocheting left-handed. And then I'll complete the last 2 stitches in red that I need to complete my chart image. And on that 2nd stitch, I'm going to do my color switch to green. So I'm just going to drop the red yarn after I've got my 3 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through in the base color, which is green for my hat. And then just continue to crochet the rest of the round in green while carrying these 2 other threads. So you don't have to do this if you are crocheting in the flat, because you're going to be crocheting right to left, then left to right, right to left, or vice versa if you're crocheting left-handed. So this is what your project is going to look like, at least the first 2 rows of our poison apple image. All right, so something to note when you are working in the round is the level of stretch. Because we have to carry this yarn, which you can see it kind of poking through, because we have to carry this yarn throughout the entire project in order to work in the round, it does not have the same amount of stretch. So if you look here, this is the top part, these last 2 rows that have the carried yarn, there's no movement, and I am pulling this as hard as I can. Now, this one, it stretches. So you can even see it here. There's 0 stretch. So that is the downside to working in the round. Now the one I made for the photo, which let me grab it, is this one right here. I worked this one as a flat. So I've already showed you how to do the stitching. If you're going to be working in the round, you just keep working on the pattern the same way. So you look at your chart and you start switching your colors as you need to, always carrying all of your threads of yarn until you no longer need it, at which point, you know, you cut your tail end and you're done. I prefer this method, which is what I'm going to show you how to do next, which is just the flat fabric. So this fabric is going to lay flat as a rectangle. You're going to switch colors. So you're going to be crocheting going in this direction and then chain 2, go this direction, chain 2, this direction, and then you just keep going. And when you're crocheting it in the flat, you don't need to carry all of the yarn throughout the entire length of the row. You just have to crochet it throughout the width of the apple. So that's going to keep it from poking out like it did with the round. So you can see the red kind of sticking out through in between the stitches. You don't have that same issue when you crochet it in the flat, and it also makes the fabric a lot stretchier because, well, you don't have that added thread to contend with. So I recommend using this method. The only downside to it is that it has a seam, whereas this round doesn't have a seam. And then to remove this little thing sticking out here, this bottom little stitch, all you have to do is just when you weave in your ends, just tuck it in so that it's nice and flat before adding your brim. And there you go. So I'm going to show you what the seam looks like. That way you can decide which method to commit to, but here's a look at it. I'll show you how to stitch this at the end, but really you can use any stitch you want. This is just kind of what it's going to look like if you crochet it as a flat fabric and then stitch it closed. So let's get rolling with this. You're going to make the exact same chain that you made for when you're crocheting in the round. So that chainless foundation, again, 75 stitches if you're doing small or 83 if you're doing large. Once you complete your row, you're going to chain 2. So this is a look at row number 1. We're going to begin on the very first stitch of the row, and you're just going to half double crochet into this stitch. So then, yeah, just yarn over, pull through all 3, and there we go. You're going to then continue to half double crochet into every stitch of the chain. So to make it easier to find when you make your next row, I highly recommend the stitch marker. I'm really, really lazy when it comes to counting stitches. So instead of going through and counting every single row that, you know, I've got 29 stitches or 27 stitches and so forth and so on, I just place the stitch marker and go from there. And that tells me where that last stitch of the row is going to go on my next row and where to begin my new row. And we're going to do the same thing that we did when we were crocheting in the round. So you're going to crochet 4 rows of half double crochet plus your chainless foundation for a total of 5 rows. When you get to row number 5, you're going to chain 2, half double crochet the different number of stitches depending on whether you're making a small or large hat. So for the small hat, it's going to be the 29 plus 4. Remember that your color switch is on stitch number 5 of that plus, did I say plus 4? I'm sorry, on stitch number 5 of that plus 5 for the chart. If you're crocheting the large, you're going to do 33 plus those 5 stitches from the chart. Remember again, color switch is on stitch 5. And then when you do your color switch at the end of your 7 red half double crochets, you no longer have to carry your red yarn. So at the end of this stitch, you can drop it. Since you're going to need to pop it up for the next row, what I do is I just flip it over, or I guess yarn it over my working yarn, which is going to be my green yarn. So just like you saw here in the video, and then do my half double crochet in my new color. What this is going to do is it's going to pop your yarn up just a little bit closer to where you're going to need it for stitching. It's going to be a lot more visible once you start working with your third color. So when you have your black yarn as well, that particular section of your work is going to be very noticeable. So the closer you have your yarn to the row that's going to go above that, the less noticeable your color switch is going to be. So that's just an option. It made my life easier. Take it or leave it. It's up to you. But the rest of the row, you're going to crochet in your base hat color. All right, so for row number 6, you start it with the chain 2, half double crochet until you get to your color switch. So if you're crocheting right-handed, you're going to do your 29 stitches in green plus 3 and then color switch. For the large hat, it's 33 plus 3 and then color switch. If you're left-handed, you're going to add 1 more stitch. So it's going to be 29 plus 4, then color switch, and then 33 plus 4 color switch. Just take a look at your chart. It'll make a lot more sense. This one's one of those that just use the chart. So continue working with your color switches, carry your yarn. Don't forget to carry your yarn. And then once you start working with your third color, this is when that pulling this thread, so I did the 1 stitch in black, I'm going to lay it over my working yarn because my next stitch is red. So lay it over your working yarn and then do your yarn over for the half double crochet. And then you insert your hook into the stitch, pull up your loop. Now you have your 3, yarn over, pull through in your new color. But this was going to, like I said earlier, it's going to keep your yarn just closer to the row above it. So see, I'm going to do it again with the red. And there you go. So just continue working. Just in the flat, always chain 2 at the beginning of the row, half double crochet all the way until you have to do your color switches, and then just drop your yarn. You no longer have to carry those additional 2 colors and crochet in your base color, which in this case is green. So I'll just continue to crochet in green until I complete the row. And if at any point while you're crocheting this project you have any questions, you're lost, or you just want to say hi, shoot me an email or leave me a comment. I'm happy to help. So, if you're getting frustrated, you're lost, you're confused in any way, leave it as a comment, shoot me an email, send me a carrier pigeon. I'm really easy to get a hold of, just, and I'm happy to help. And when you get to the top part of the poison apple, so the little stick part of the pattern, you're going to need a third color for this. So I guess it's a total of 4 colors that you're going to need for this hat, but Big Twist, they sell this one at Joann. They have these tiny skeins. I think it's like 87. Yeah, I say skeins, not skeins. They have these little ones that are like 87 yards, and I think it's like maybe 50 grams for those of you that use grams. But they have those. They didn't have a dark brown one. This is the darkest kind of brownish, beigeish color I could find. But feel free to use whatever color or skip this part of the pattern altogether. You'll end up with kind of a skull looking thing on your hat instead of a poison apple. But, make it your own. Remember to weave in all the tail ends before moving on to the brim or cinching the top of your hat. So you can either weave them in by taking a needle and just kind of go through, weave in however you normally would, or just half double crochet over the tail ends. Whichever one is easier, both methods work just fine. Once you finish crocheting the poison apple chart, including the stick, for the small hat, you're going to crochet 5 rows of half double crochet in your base hat color. For the large hat, you'll crochet 7 rows. And then just chain 1 at the very last stitch of the row. Once you've completely finished it, chain 1 and leave a really long tail end of yarn. You're going to use this to sew the hat closed. So, I'll play some music. You can watch how I stitched this. You can use whatever stitch you want. If you want to make it highly visible, you can change the yarn color if you want to. But I'll leave you here so you can watch how I stitched it, and then we'll move on to the brim. Once your hat is stitched together, let's move on to the brim. So here's what it's going to look like. We're going to turn it upside down. So if you look at our candy apple, it's upside down. And we're going to begin the brim along the bottom side of the hat. For this, I'm going to switch color again. So I'm going to use red. We're going to be using a half. Oh my gosh. We're going to be using a Tunisian crochet method. So knit stitch and purl stitch with Tunisian crochet. You can use a regular hook for this. It's not going to be very long. So as you can see, I'm using a regular hook and you'll be just fine. Insert your hook into any of the stitches. I recommend the stitch right after the seam you just crocheted, and you are going to chain 10. Now it doesn't matter whether you're crocheting a small hat or a large hat, 10 stitches is going to be what you're going to see on the written pattern. Once you've crocheted this, it's going to look like you see here. Beginning on the second stitch of your chain, you're going to cast on a foundation row. For this, you're just going to insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Leave the loop on your hook. Repeat this with every stitch of the chain. So at the end of this, you should have, I believe it is 10 stitches. It might be 11. Just crochet one into every stitch of the row. When you reach the brim, so once you've cast on your final stitch, you're going to go into the next available stitch along the bottom side of the hat. Yarn over and pull up a loop. So here's what it looks like. For our yarn over, you're going to yarn over and, our return pass, you're going to yarn over and pull through 2. And then yarn over, pull through 2. And again, yarn over, pull through 2 until you are left with just the 1 loop on your hook. So this is the return pass. It's going to be the same after every single time you cast on a row. So if you're new to Tunisian crochet, hey, welcome. This is a nice intro. So there's our first row. We're going to begin now with a row of knit stitches. So for the knit stitch, if you take a look at our stitching right here, or our vertical stitch, it's made up of 2 legs. Here's the back one, here's the front one. So I'll see if I can find another stitch where you can see it a little bit better. There we go. So back leg, front stitch, back leg and front leg. Oh my God. You're going to insert your hook between the legs of the vertical stitch. Always skip the first vertical stitch, go into the second one. So knit stitch, like so, and pull up a loop. So you're going to do this with every stitch along the row, so every single one of the vertical stitches. And again, once you reach that very last stitch of the row, or I guess the first stitch along the base of your hat, so back to, our green color, go into the next available stitch, and then just cast on 1 more loop. So when you get here to the end, here's our next stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And you're going to complete a return pass. So yarn over, pull through 2, with all of the loops until you are left with just 1 loop on your hook. Repeat the row of knit stitches. So you're going to do 2 knit, 2 purl. So 2 rows of knit stitch, 2 rows of purl stitch. For those of you that need to watch it again, I'll complete this next row with you. If you know how to knit stitch and you just want to skip, go down to the description box and just hit the timestamp for the purl stitches. So here we are. We've done a foundation row, 2 rows of knit stitch, and now we're going to do our row of purl stitch. Well, we need 2, but let's one at a time. You're going to reverse yarn over, insert your hook behind the front leg of the stitch, and pull your yarn like you see here, yarning over, just regular yarn over. And then you're going to pull up a loop. So again, reverse yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, so just the front leg, and then do a regular yarn over and pull up a loop. So this is a purl stitch. Do this in all of the vertical stitches along the row, and then just cast on into the next available stitch along the base of the hat, and complete a return pass. So I don't know, the last music I thought was very pretty and soothing, so I'm going to play it again, and you guys can watch the next 2 rows of purl stitch. For those of you that are more advanced, it's 2 rows of purl stitch, and then you just repeat 2 knit, 2 purl until you complete the round. Now that you've completed your round, we're going to work on a bind off stitch. So see, we've gone all the way around. Now, your bind off stitch is going to differ based on whether you ended on a purl stitch or a purl stitch row or a knit stitch row. If it is a purl stitch row, you're just going to purl that first stitch. Once you have 2 loops on your hook like so, you're going to yarn over and pull through both of those loops to close your purl as a single crochet. You're going to repeat this in all of the stitches of the row. So on this next one, you're going to cast on as a purl and then close as a single crochet. Now, If you ended in a row and knit stitch, you're going to knit. You're going to do the same process but with a knit stitch. So knit in your next available stitch. Once you have your 2 loops, you're going to yarn over and pull through both just to close as a single crochet. When you get to the last stitch of the row, you'll slip stitch into the hat and then cut a long tail end of yarn, which you're going to use to sew the ends of the brim closed. Once you finish stitching, I can't speak. Once you finish all your stitching, go through and weave in your ends. Because this is the brim of the hat and it's going to get the most wear and tear, take an extra few minutes to weave in just a little bit longer, or, yeah, give it a few more stitches is what I'm trying to say. Once you're through with that, we're ready to begin cinching the top of the hat closed. For those of you adding a pom-pom to the top of your hat, leave some space because this is essentially going to become your buttonhole. So leave space at the top of the hat. Don't cinch it completely closed so you can actually fit the button through, and then you'll be able to remove your pom-pom whenever you wash your hat. If you want to make a faux fur pom-pom, I do have a tutorial for it. I think it's like 10-minute DIY pom-pom. I'll link it down in the description box below or put it here at the top of the screen. Just add a button to the bottom of it. I didn't do that in the tutorial. I only figured that out maybe like a year after. Add a button to the bottom, and then you'll be able to, pop it on to the top of your hat whenever you wash it. It's awesome. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. Visit the blog. You can check out the free pattern. You can purchase the PDF version if you want to. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again in the next video.